Dietrich Bonhoeffer, the renowned German theologian and World War II martyr, once shared this belief that if you love the idea of your community more than the community itself, you'll destroy it, no matter how good and no matter how noble your intentions may be. But it sure is hard sometimes to love our communities, isn't it? Especially if we don't fit someone's idea of it. Born on the island of Puerto Rico, yet raised in the greater Savannah area, I never quite knew where to call home. My parents did an excellent job of educating me about my roots. Spanish was the dominant language in the household. Rice and beans were our daily bread. And our favorite Sunday tradition would be to go after church to someone's home and play a tournament of dominoes. Our frequent trips to Puerto Rico were like a pilgrimage, if you will. And the first 14 years of my spiritual formation were molded by a Hispanic church. In fact, the only constant interaction I could count on with non-Hispanics was usually from school or with the neighborhood kids. But everything about my upbringing, from the food, the music, the natural home remedies, even the style of discipline, was puro Boricua, purely Puerto Rican. One day, my parents told my sister and I that we would be trying out a new faith community. Just down the street from our previous church was another church. It was predominantly white. So we knew that it would be different, of course, but we were very positive about a good change. I mean, these were punctual people with proper facilities and structures. They were getting things done and making things happen. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done. We had a lot of good things to learn from them. But over the years, as I matured, I became increasingly aware of how un-Southern and how un-American I was perceived to be. In fact, I had gotten used to hearing inappropriate comments about my heritage from school kids, from stories that I heard from other family members and friends with their daily interactions. But I was caught off guard when I started to hear it on a regular basis from the most sacred of sacred spaces, a place I called a refuge. And oftentimes I'd hear jokes and remarks like these. Go back to Cuba. Quit speaking Spanish. This is America. Hey, why don't you get your Christmas shopping done at the Walmart on 17? All y'all Mexicans look alike. Oh, you must be so happy President Obama has won. You can rejoice with your cousins at the border now. I finally had begun to realize that no matter what I tried to do to fit in, I would never be truly accepted. You see, I was like that neighbor's kid that was always welcome for supper, but come bedtime, I knew I had to leave. I did not want to overstay my welcome. And it didn't matter how many times I heard from the pulpit the message of God's love. I needed to experience God's love through the people around me. You see, they loved me, but they loved their idea of community more. And with time, the messages from the pulpit became clouded with this reality that I was living every single day, that I wasn't really respected, much less appreciated. But so often, our biases get in the way of us respecting and appreciating one another. In fact, it could be much more than just learning how to respect and appreciate one another. We could be learning how to celebrate one another, all who are in our community. As an 8th grade Spanish teacher, are you surprised? My 8th graders participated in a classroom version of Shark Tank this year. They had to research a global problem that impacted a Spanish-speaking community. And then they crafted a prototype that would be a partial solution to this problem. Let me tell you some of the cool ideas they came up with. Some of them were concerned about clean water, so they came up with convenient water filtration systems. The washing wizard solved your problems of doing laundry without electricity. And you've heard of the smart home. Well, now we could have a smart hotel for stray dogs. They really rose to the challenge, these students. The ultimate goal was to be able to sell their ideas in Spanish to potential investors. So local Hispanic leaders here from our community were welcomed in to play the role of these sharks. The students beamed with joy whenever they grabbed the deal from one of the sharks. And this portion wasn't even a grade. This part was just competition and fun. See, there was something so special about that validation, that somebody would take the time to appreciate not only their hard work, but their creativity, their ideas, their passions. And this validation wasn't any less valid because it came from a shark that may have had an accent or came from a different part of town. In fact, the Shark Tank, as good as it is for innovation, for collaboration, for entrepreneurship, all those buzzwords that we hear now in education, it did something more important than that. It celebrated the minorities and the incredible roles that they play here in our city of Savannah, beyond the limiting stereotypes that are often portrayed. So afterwards, I took these sharks, these Hispanic leaders, on a tour of the campus. One of them, Carlos, kind of nodded his head, looked around for a minute very reflectively, and then he said to me, "And who can believe that one of our own is teaching at such a privileged school? What if there is a bigger reason we are all here today? Maybe we're finding our place in this community." In that moment, Southern challenges became Southern momentum for change. Teaching is a tool to help create the citizens that the 14-year-old me needed growing up, to create the citizens that other 14-year-olds like me need today. The kind of citizens that can look at someone like Carlos and say, wow, he's one of us. He's part of our community, and he's awesome. And that is something that no comprehensive curriculum, no book, no workshop on diversity and inclusion can do alone. That is when we as individuals look for opportunities in the everyday, mundane, and insignificant things to help establish human connection with the other. We're all immersed in diversity in one way or another. For me, it's marriage. I want you to picture this: an extroverted Puerto Rican educator married to an introverted, reserved engineer from India. Oh, we have differences. And we have ideas of how things should be. Just watch us try to decide what spices to put into our dishes. But marriage has been teaching us that love is not an idea. Commitment is not an idea. Love is a verb that builds up and moves in spite of our differences. And so it is in our communities. What would it look like if we build each other up? If CEOs decided that we were going to fund programs that reached out to less privileged communities, to train, recruit, empower them to send their very best to come work with us, we'd have fewer excuses for why our faculty and staff are not so diverse. What if, as stay-at-home parents, we decided that we were going to befriend more than one family of color on a regular basis, go to their homes, break bread with them? Are we willing to move towards one another to really get to know our neighbors in this city? If we are intentional about opportunities every day, we will find ourselves embracing real community. The South has a lot of brokenness when it comes to racism and prejudice. It doesn't have to be the case. If we are intentional, we'll find ourselves in an integrated South. Let's build up our communities. Let's celebrate one another. Let's go love our city. Thank you.